If people pleasing has been a struggle for you in your life, you've probably had a lot of people tell you, just raise your self worth, which is, I'm sure, very well intended, but sometimes it's really vague. Like, how do you actually go about raising your self worth? Hi, I'm Kirby. I'm a recovering people pleaser. I went through this whole process myself, so I have broken it down into 5 practical steps you can start doing today to really raise your self worth now. Okay. So if that applies to you, please listen up. So the first thing you can do is to start building trust with yourself. So for me, when I started on this journey, I didn't trust myself at all because, of course, I'd been falling on my own sword so that everybody else could be okay and just completely abandoning myself. So I had zero trust in myself. Like, I didn't trust that I was going to stand up for myself, that I was going to protect myself. I had very little faith in myself. So I had to start taking very small steps to start building that. And for me, I know it sounds silly, but it looks like making my bed every morning. If I can make my bed every morning, I can start to build on that. And so I did stuff like that. So I'd make my bed every morning. And now it's totally evolved. Now, I just read the 5-second rule by Mel Robbins a couple months ago. And after being a complete night owl all of my whole life, I've wanted to be a morning person. I remember in college, my freshman year, I scheduled 8 a.m. classes Monday through Friday because I'm very ambitious, but I wasn't a morning person. And I ended up making all of those classes up at the end of the semester because I slept through every single one. I don't know if I would slept through them. It was an intentional sleeping through. But like this, my whole life I've been wanting this, and I read the Mel Robbins book, and it was fantastic. And like since then, I've been waking up at 5 a.m. And my rule for myself is no phone. So I leave my phone upstairs. I like in the book, she says, don't have your phone by your bedside. So I put it somewhere else and my alarm goes off. I turn it off and I go downstairs. And before I can have my first cup of coffee, I tell myself, okay, I got to meditate for 5 minutes. And so I started doing that. And then that eventually built to now it's 10 minutes. And then and then I get my coffee. So if you've ever read the book Atomic Habits, the author talks about habit stacking. So that's like kind of like a hack to make those things a little bit easier, because once you have one habit set, so like for me, like the making the bed or waking up and turning off my alarm and immediately going downstairs, and then doing the meditation and then the coffee, you put like a little reward in there. Once you have that whole circuit set, it's so much easier to add things in after that. So for me, I've I get my reward of my cup of coffee, but then after that, I write down what I'm grateful for. And then I write down 2 achievements from the day before. I'm like, that's another thing you can do. Celebrate like the small wins in your life. And then I write 2 things I can improve upon from the day before. And then I write my to-do list, and then I write some affirmations. So like I just stacked everything because I'm like, I know I'm going to do this one thing and it's so much easier to just pile it on. So that's one thing you can do. But the idea is that you start building trust with yourself so that obviously you start to value yourself, and then that's where the self-worth comes from. Another thing I did was I had to really take a hard look at who I was surrounding myself with, who I was talking to all the time, who I was spending time with. So, and that might be really triggering for some people who are very new to setting boundaries and like are just like, okay, I know I'm a people pleaser. I don't want to keep living life that way, but I don't know where to begin. And setting boundaries sounds really scary. So you're like right at that point. What I did for myself was before I even started setting boundaries, I just started paying attention to if my relationships were reciprocal. So I was giving energy and then they would give energy back. If they were toxic, were they putting me down? Were they saying harmful things, but then making a joke of it later? I just was like paying attention to how I actually felt in my body around different people. And that gave me a lot of information. And believe it or not, just having that information led me to intuitively like distancing myself from certain people or holding back in conversation with them and not revealing, things about myself that I normally would tell them in the past. And so I really started to clear out my life of some, toxic, I don't want to call people toxic, of, just relationships that weren't working for me. And then what happened later was that I opened that space up for other people to come in that were actually supportive. And then the friendships that I did have that were supportive, like obviously, like I put more energy into that because then energy was coming back to me. So that's huge because if, for me, like having a bunch of people in my life that were full of fear, that didn't believe in me, and take it a step further, were putting me down. I kind of thought, I was like, okay, well, I have this friendship with one of my friends, and I'm like, this woman has never put me down. She's never had ill intentions towards me. She's always come toward me with love. And I feel like I am trying to do that in my relationships. And I realized that, like, guess what? I can set that standard with everyone in my life. And if they don't meet that, then I distance myself accordingly. So that was a big eye opener for me. The next thing you can do, and this is massive, is watch how you're talking to yourself in your brain, but also watch what you're saying about yourself. So when I first started paying attention to this, wow, that voice was mean. She was a mean lady. She was not nice. And like, I just was like, I didn't realize it was that bad. So I started paying attention to it, and then I started questioning it, so if you're, familiar with Byron Katie's work, if you're not, go buy one of her books. Amazing. She talks about this process that she discovered where basically she started questioning all of her thoughts and like the thoughts that were giving her anxiety, like the negative thoughts, the fear, anything that wasn't, inducing peace inside of her. She started questioning it. And so that's kind of what I started doing in my brain. I was like, okay, where's that? Whose voice is that? Is that my voice? Or is that some voice from my childhood that I've just taken on and like repeated in my head over and over for years, but never really paid attention to it because I was just like thinking it. I was just being my thoughts. I wasn't really like paying attention to them. And once I started doing that, like really, it's kind of crazy, but all you need is awareness. Like you don't need to have to know how to do all of this stuff. If you just really like shine the light of your awareness on your thoughts, that's enough for them to start to shift. Just try it. I know it sounds like unbelievable, but it's true. Thank God. And so the other thing, like, questioning my negative thoughts, but then also talking back to my negative thoughts. So when something wouldn't go the way that I really wanted it to go, instead of beating the crap out of myself on a regular basis, which will really keep your self-worth down here, I started practicing the mantra of progress, not perfection. Okay, this didn't go the way that I wanted it to. Not even close. But guess what? I learned something from this situation. So next time, when this situation comes up again, I'm going to do it a little bit better. So that kind of ties in also to like celebrate your really small wins. So you can even find a win in a crap situation, right? Like, okay, I learned something. That's a win. There's no failure. There's just learning. And so I started practicing that mantra. And also like, easy does it. I'll figure it out. I don't need to learn everything in one day. Just started speaking kinder to myself. And then, like I said, really watching what was coming out of my mouth. So, I felt like I was famous for like self-deprecating humor. Like that was a really big part of my, how I would disarm people. If I was worried that they were upset for some reason, I would use like self-deprecating humor. And so I started pulling that back and just being more aware of like, okay, I'm going to speak kindly about myself, and maybe I just be quiet and not say the funny thing that could make everybody laugh and give me a hit of validation, right? Okay, and the next one, number 4, is helping others. So when we volunteer or help a friend do some dishes, when you're at a party, and this is really helpful for me. Like if I'm at an event, whether it's with family or a bunch of people I don't know, if I start going into being, like helping, then I don't feel as anxious, right? Like if I'm feeling anxious in that moment, which, I feel like it's gotten better over time, but if I'm feeling anxious in whatever situation or, like around family and I'm regressing a ton, I'll go do the dishes because then I'm out of my own brain. I'm helping whoever's house it is that I'm at. And I'm like, I feel like I have a sense of purpose and a sense of worthiness. And when you help others, like say if I'm going to call a girlfriend and just be like, hey, I know stuff's been hard for you. What's going on? Guess what I'm not thinking about? The mean things in my brain that I want to be thinking about, that my brain wants me to be thinking about so that I can have control over whatever the lizard brain wants to have control over. So helping others is a great way, and volunteering. I think when I volunteer, like I see that maybe my problems aren't so bad, and that I can be of service. Like I have value because I can give of myself to a good cause. So maybe I just said the same thing, like in like 4 different ways, but you get it. Okay, and last but not least, and this one's very important, but start taking care of your body. So, and I'm not saying you have to go be like a bodybuilder or anything like that, but like start going for short walks. Start putting lotion on. Do you have like dried, cracked heels? Like maybe take care of that. Put some crazy glue on there. I don't know what people do. Just little tiny things. It doesn't have to be massive, but take some time to do something for yourself. So, it's always great to work out. You get all those endorphins like flood your whole body, and that feels great. And then also you feel accomplished, and maybe you get some physical benefits from it too, or, physical appearance. You get it. Okay. And this might be a little offshoot, but I think for myself, meditation has been huge. And, I mentioned it earlier. I meditate for like 5 to 10 minutes every morning, and I just do it in silence, and I don't make it hard. I know a lot of people have huge blocks towards meditation, saying like, I can't sit there for however long and my brain's jumping around. Well, your brain's going to jump around. That's what it does. But if I can just sit in silence, like that's my only goal. I'm just going to sit in silence and breathe and not move for 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm not going to judge what my brain is doing. I'm just going to sit in silence because guess what? Over time, that monkey mind is going to slow down and you will get some space in between those thoughts. Like to think that you have to go from thinking in your brain all the time, your whole entire life, to, oh, okay, I'm going to meditate now. And now all my thoughts must go away. It doesn't work like that. And I think even I've been meditating for a long time and I still have not reached that point. If you have, let me know how it is. So hopefully that helps. I just didn't know the actual steps to raising your self-worth. So after going through this and just kind of poking my way in the dark, I figured I'd share them with you. I really hope that was helpful. If anything struck a chord with you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I have a few other videos as well. If you enjoy this content, please think about subscribing. And if not, I hope you have a wonderful day and I hope this helped. Take care.